Hello, continuing studies listeners. Welcome to another episode. But this episode, we're doing something a little bit different, aren't we, Jen?
Yes, I'm really excited about this episode because we have one of the OGs of continuing study podcasts, our very first producer, also the wizard of Higher Ed Pod's directory, and just our friend, Greg. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Jen. Hi, Neil. And hello, listener.
That's quite the welcome, Jen. I love that. I want you to give me a welcome now.
I'm excited to be me right now, even. I'm so excited by that intro.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's not get them too excited here. So today, we're just going to spend a couple minutes chatting and updating everyone on Higher Ed PodCon.
Which is the first inaugural one, which I'm excited about. And you two have been working tirelessly with a few other great guys, Alvin, Joe,
and Dean. Yeah, we are. And we are at a place where we can start to talk about the agenda and some of the speakers as well, too. So we thought we'd just sort of give everyone an update on that. And just to remind you, it's July 12th in Chicago. It's a jam-packed one-day event.
You're going to get your money's worth.
We've got a lot to cover off.
Yeah, I mean, this is a particularly exciting thing. I think for the listeners of this show, it's been talked about so much about community within higher ed podcasters and how oftentimes the guests will talk about how lonely an enterprise it is as a podcaster and particularly as a higher ed podcaster, because oftentimes people are so siloed in their work or they're doing it off the side of their desk or, all these sorts of scenarios. And this is a fantastic opportunity now for all of these incredible people to come together and learn from one another. So, yeah, we're going to hang out, people. It's going to be great.
And the thing Neil and I also hear a lot is Neil and I have been going to conferences for the last 4 years. That's how we met. And in one of the early ones that we were at, there were a few higher ed podcasters. And I remember, Neil, you put together a little shindig where it was like we meet up at the one in Denver. A little meetup, and there was only a few of us, but that was their complaint, is that there's not enough podcast information on higher ed pods. So now we're doing it. We're doing it.
So now we've got a website. Now there's a conference that's going on and a fantastic agenda. You sort of alluded to the agenda that's there. I mean, first up, Matt Abrahams is the keynote speaker, not just one of the great podcasts within higher education, but one of the top podcasts in the world, a huge listenership and a friend of us here on the show. So I'm really excited that Matt is going to be there and is going to share with us. And then actually there's a whole bunch of previous guests on this show in the 3 tracks. Neil, how about you describe the 3 tracks?
Yeah, so we've got 3 larger tracks and we're going to run concurrent workshops is what we're calling them. So the 3 tracks are, the first one is strategy, growth, and discovery. So really thinking about your podcast from a strategic perspective, tips and strategies to grow it and to get it discovered. One of the areas in there that we want to dive into, and we've got a couple of people coming to talk about, is how they've built networks at their universities. And I think that's a great way for individual podcasts to create discovery, everyone joining together. We've interviewed a few people on continuing studies and we've talked about that network effect. So that's one of the areas. The second one is about content and production. So in this one, it's really just sort of getting into different content themes, as well as there's a couple of folks coming that can really talk to the production side of it and sort of getting into the tactics of production. And then the third area is what we're calling tech, tools, and analytics. The second one from a production perspective is really trying to focus in on the content and driving better and creating efficiency within your content production. This third one is just even further kind of getting into the weeds here on different tools and technologies you could use. But also Greg and I are going to do a session in this one about analytics and really everything but the download. Like, what are all the things that as a podcaster, as a higher ed podcaster, you can pay attention to beyond the downloads and looking at the different platforms and things that you can get out of those platforms.
And this is what I really like about this particular conference, because when I go to the other conferences, everyone talks about growth and they have a quote unquote growth track, but you actually don't learn about growth. And I love the fact that we're taking it back to the basics and actually like going to the things like, what are your analytics? And I think that's what a lot of people want to look at. Every time, like I remember the very first conference I met you, I went on the growth track and not throwing shade at this guy. Like obviously he's a speaker in his
do
own
throw
way.
shade.
The growth tactics did not seem attainable to the average person. He was just one of the ones on the floor too talking. And I remember one of his growth tactics. And again, his audience is like beginner podcasters. He's in like the beginner podcaster track. And he's like, write a book. A book is going to bring attention to your podcast. And I was like, that is a lot of work to write a book. Not everybody is a writer, including myself. And just by writing a book does not guarantee that your brand new podcast is going to grow.
Yeah, I think the other really key part here is that these are all focused on higher education podcasts.
Yes.
So the growth, for example, this is not for monetized podcasts that are looking to grow their downloads so they can get more revenue coming in. And for some higher education podcasters, it's not growth for the sake of growth. It's like for an alumni podcast, for example, that's about like, well, how do you grow the engagement within your alumni? So I think that's the other part that's really key.
Yeah, I would just to expand on that. This is something that I'm really excited about for this conference. My favorite conferences I've been to are those where the person who's giving the presentation is basically just the one who's prepared the presentation, but everyone else there also has a great deal of expertise to share. And that's what I really look forward to with this Higher Ed PodCon is that, you know, these are people that are creating podcasts out there. You know, nobody's got it all figured out, but a lot of us have our corners of things figured out quite well. And we have so much to share with one another. And so, yeah, Neil and I, we're going to have a great presentation, which I feel really confident about right now. I'll be definitely nervous about 10 minutes before, but
That's the way it is.
Yeah, that's how it goes. But that's going to be great. And the thing that I know is that there'll be people in that audience that will have great insights to add. And the particulars, like you say, Neil, for a higher education podcaster, this isn't an event for a marketing group in particular where you're trying to drive ad sales. Basically, nobody at this conference is going to be trying to drive ad sales. And that really changes the whole discussion of what a podcast is about. And yeah, this is for you, listener.
But people should be thinking that way, regardless of if they're doing it higher ed or to create a podcast. Everyone thinks right away monetization, and there are ways to do it, of course. But I think what we're showing is valuable is like why people use podcasting as a tool for business. You use it for a tool for higher education. There is so much more to it, and there's so much richness to it that you just have to figure out, like, is it for networking? Is it to get my message across? And I think this is what I like, that we're bringing it back to that here in this conference.
Yes, totally. So there's essentially, there'll be so as we said, one day, there's the keynote, and then there's 4 different workshop sessions. The nice thing is lunch, we're setting that aside for some networking and perhaps maybe a live recording surprise there from a podcast, like TBD. Let's wait and find out. But we've also have in the afternoon, in the middle of the 2 session slots, we've got a networking. And so that isn't for everyone to go out and get on their phones, but we are actually going to do a networking exercise. And so the goal, as Greg said off the top, this is about community. We want us to go away from this one-day event and having met a whole bunch of other fellow higher education podcasters. So we're going to do some networking exercises, and I think it's going to be fun. We've got some really fun ideas. And then we're going to end the day with a reception. So more time for networking, some drinks and some hors d'oeuvres at the end of the day. So lots on deck there. And it's a Saturday, so I'm sure a lot of us will be staying over the Saturday night, and there's also a White Sox game on Sunday, so maybe, you know, we could all go out.
We do like a continuous team building exercise.
I think so. So yeah, we're pretty excited. Details we'll be continuing to add at higheredpodcon.com. We'll put that link in the show notes. And we had over 32 submissions
Yeah.
for
Oh, yeah.
speakers,
For speakers.
which was incredible for the first time around for an event like that.
And from a fantastic diversity of different sizes of universities, like really big institutions with huge budgets and endowments, to small universities and colleges, so the big range that way, and a range of different types of podcasts, some STEM podcasts to alumni podcasts, like a full range. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Student-led podcast.
Student-led, yeah.
Yep. So we're going to be covering
We got
that
it all.
So that's great.
And it's in Chicago, and it's really exciting city as well. So you can tour around the city and go to Higher Ed PodCon. It's a great city. Big question for you guys, because I've never done this. Last time I was there and I kind of regret it. Have you ever had like deep dish?
Oh, Chicago deep dish pizza.
Yeah, Catherine, producer is going, no.
Our producers in the background going, no, you don't want it.
I don't know. I feel like, is it something that we need to
I'm gonna
try?
I think Kat has an opinion on pizza that you'll have to come and find out about.
Oh, yeah. That's another good point, too. So who this is for, it's for the people, like Neil and Jen, the people behind the microphone, but also the people like Kat and myself who are generally on the other side, like, working the controls and, the Marcom department.
Dealing with us divas.
Yeah. The divas and those who deal with them. We're all welcome there together.
Yeah.
We could separate into our groups.
Well, let's leave it there. Another episode, different episode this time, more of an announcement, but we'd really love to see you there and to meet you in person at PodCon in July in Chicago.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be hot.